I'll never forget the sound. A sharp electrical pop followed by the unmistakable smell of fried electronics drifting through the cool night air. From my darkened living room window, I watched as sparks briefly illuminated the street corner where my property line met the sidewalk. A smile crept across my face. The trap had been sprung, and right on schedule too. I checked my phone. 1:47 a.m. Like clockwork, she had returned to steal what wasn't hers. I knew I should probably feel bad about what I'd done, but after months of theft, lies, and harassment, justice had finally arrived in the form of a cleverly designed circuit and a basic understanding of electrical engineering. I went to bed that night and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of hysterical screaming. I didn't need to look out my window to know what was happening, but I did anyway. There she was, Patricia Wexler, president of the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, standing beside her sleek white Tesla Model X. Smoke was still curling from what remained of her portable charging adapter, and her face had turned an impressive shade of crimson. As she gestured wildly at my house, our eyes met through the window, and I gave her a small wave before closing the blinds. My coffee tasted especially good that morning. I should probably back up and explain how things got to this point. My name is Daniel Fletcher, and until 6 months ago, I was living a perfectly quiet life in Meadowbrook Estates. I had moved here 3 years earlier, after accepting a remote position as a software developer for Quantum Solutions, a company specializing in infrastructure security systems. The irony of my current situation wasn't lost on me. I helped secure major corporations against technological threats, yet couldn't seem to protect my own home from a neighborhood power pirate. Meadowbrook Estates had appealed to me from the moment I first drove through its pristine streets. The development was only 7 years old, with modern homes featuring open floor plans, smart home integration, and good-sized lots that offered actual privacy, a rarity in new subdivisions where houses are typically stacked like dominoes. The community boasted impressive amenities: a clubhouse with a fitness center, a swimming pool that rivaled small water parks, and most importantly for me, fiber internet access that promised the blazing speeds my work demanded. My particular house sat on a corner lot at the intersection of Meadowbrook Drive and Sycamore Lane, giving me slightly more yard space than interior lots. The previous owners had been an elderly couple who'd moved to Arizona for health reasons, and they'd left the place in immaculate condition, structurally, but woefully outdated in terms of technology and electrical capacity. Having spent 15 years as an electrical engineer before transitioning to software development, I saw this as an opportunity rather than a problem. I completely renovated the electrical system during my first year, upgrading the panel to 200 amps, rewiring to accommodate my home office's substantial power needs, and installing several outdoor outlets strategically placed around the exterior for convenience, one near the front door for holiday decorations, 2 in the backyard for outdoor entertainment, and 1 near the street that I had initially intended for landscaping equipment. That last outlet, the one by the street, was the source of all my current troubles. I'd installed a commercial-grade, weather-protected outlet with tamper-resistant features, all properly permitted and inspected by the county. I'd even gone the extra mile to ensure it matched the house's color scheme and was partially concealed by decorative landscaping to maintain the neighborhood's aesthetic standards. Little did I know those careful considerations would become the center of a suburban power struggle, literally. In retrospect, I should have installed a locking cover, but who expects their homeowners association president to become an electricity thief? It started when I noticed my electrical bill had jumped significantly. At first, I chalked it up to summer air conditioning costs, but when I reviewed my smart meter data, I noticed something odd. There were consistent power draws happening between midnight and 4:00 a.m., pulling nearly 40 amps for hours at a time. This wasn't just someone borrowing power to run a leaf blower. This was serious electricity theft. I installed a small security camera aimed at my outdoor outlets, hidden in a decorative birdhouse. It took only 2 nights to catch the culprit. The footage showed Patricia, who everyone in the neighborhood called HOA Karen behind her back, parking her Tesla near my property line after midnight. She would quickly connect a splitter to my exterior outlet, run a charging cable across the grass to her car, and then hurry away. The splitter was cleverly hidden behind a decorative rock when not in use, and she would retrieve her charging cable before dawn. No wonder I hadn't noticed. I'm not exactly an early riser, but now I had evidence and I was furious. This wasn't just a few dollars of electricity, it was thousands of watts of power, night after night, all summer long. I decided to address the situation directly, like a reasonable adult. I waited until I saw Patricia outside her house, which happened to be the following Saturday, as she was collecting her mail. I approached with a friendly smile, introduced myself properly, since we'd only exchanged brief hellos before, and then politely mentioned that I had noticed some unusual power consumption at my house. I've actually installed some cameras, I explained calmly, and I've seen someone using my outdoor outlets during the night. The footage clearly shows it's you charging your Tesla. I'm sure there must be some misunderstanding, but I'd appreciate if you'd stop and perhaps we could work out a way to reimburse me for the electricity already used. Patricia's reaction was educational. Her friendly neighbor mask dropped instantly, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied with a dismissive wave of her hand. "Your cameras must be malfunctioning. Besides, this is a community, Mr. Fletcher. We all share resources here. It's an unwritten rule. If you were more involved in neighborhood activities, you'd understand how things work in Meadowbrook." I was stunned by her brazen denial. "I have clear video evidence," I insisted, "and regardless of community spirit, taking electricity without permission is theft." Patricia's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Let me remind you that as the Homeowners Association president, I'm responsible for ensuring all exterior modifications comply with our bylaws. Those outlets of yours, did you get proper approval before installing them?" Her smile returned, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'd hate to see you face fines for unauthorized modifications. Those can add up quite quickly." And just like that, I was being threatened with Homeowners Association violations for having the audacity to question why she was stealing my electricity. I retreated for the moment, determined to handle this through proper channels. Surely the other board members would see reason when presented with clear evidence of their president's misconduct. I was wrong. The next Homeowners Association meeting was an exercise in futility. I arrived early, hoping to speak with board members before the official start, only to find Patricia already holding court at the center table, surrounded by her 4 loyal board members. For 45 minutes, I sat through discussions about landscaping contracts, the community garage sale, and whether the clubhouse should allow children's birthday parties. Patricia skillfully controlled every conversation, allowing certain people to speak while cutting others off. The other board members, Walter, Diane, James, and Robert, all deferred to her with practiced synchronicity. When we finally reached the open comments portion, I raised my hand. Patricia acknowledged me with a tight smile. "Ah, Mr. Fletcher, the floor is yours. For 3 minutes, as per our bylaws." I addressed the room, keeping my tone professional. "I'd like to bring to the board's attention an ongoing issue of electricity theft from my property. Someone has been connecting to my outdoor outlet to charge an electric vehicle during overnight hours. I have video evidence and power logs that clearly identify—" Patricia smoothly interrupted. "Mr. Fletcher, while we appreciate community concerns, we need to stick to the pre-approved agenda items to ensure efficient use of everyone's time. Property disputes should first go through our mediation committee." "This isn't a dispute between neighbors," I clarified. "This is documented theft of utilities, and the person responsible is a member of this board." A murmur rippled through the room. Patricia's smile didn't falter, but her knuckles whitened. "That's a serious accusation, and not appropriate for an open forum without proper documentation submitted in advance." "I have the documentation right here," I said, holding up my tablet. "Security footage, power logs, timestamps, everything needed to verify what I'm saying." Patricia glanced at James the lawyer, who gave a slight nod. "In the interest of due process, I move that we table Mr. Fletcher's concerns until a proper investigation can be conducted by our compliance committee. All in favor?" Her 4 allies raised their hands in unison. "The motion passes," Patricia declared, already moving on. "Now, regarding the seasonal flowers at the community entrance, I left that meeting with the distinct impression that no such investigation would ever happen. As I walked to my car, Walter hurried to catch up with me. "Fletcher," he said quietly, glancing over his shoulder. "Just some friendly advice. Patricia has been president for 6 years. Nobody runs against her anymore because those who tried found themselves buried in violations. She has a long memory for people who cross her. I'd find another way to resolve this." Later that week, I received a notice of violation for unapproved exterior electrical installations and landscaping that does not conform to neighborhood aesthetic standards. The potential fines totaled over $800 if not corrected within 30 days. It was war then, but if Karen thought I would back down that easily, she had severely misjudged her opponent. I'm not confrontational by nature, but I am methodical and thorough. I began documenting everything, installing professional-grade power monitoring equipment on my electrical panel that logged usage by circuit and timestamp. I added more cameras with night vision capabilities, making sure they captured every angle of my property line. I even consulted with a lawyer friend about the legality of what Patricia was doing. His assessment was clear. This was textbook utility theft, a criminal offense in our state, but taking legal action would require evidence beyond just my word against hers. 2 weeks of data collection confirmed my suspicions. Patricia was stealing approximately 45 kilowatt-thousand of electricity every night she charged, which added up to nearly $100 a week. She wasn't even charging her Tesla at home. She was exclusively using my power. Armed with this information, I sent a certified letter to the entire Homeowners Association board detailing the theft with timestamps, power consumption data, and selected still images from my security footage. I requested immediate action and suggested that if none was taken, I would be forced to file a police report and pursue legal remedies. Patricia's response was swift and vindictive. The very next day I received notices for additional violations. Apparently, my trash cans had been visible from the street for too long after collection. My mailbox was half an inch shorter than regulation, and the shade of beige on my window trim was not on the approved color palette. Each violation carried its own fine, but that wasn't all. When I tried to use the neighborhood pool that weekend, my access card had mysteriously been deactivated. The attendant apologetically informed me that there was a hold on my account due to unresolved violations. I was being systematically isolated and punished by a person who had structured the Homeowners Association as her personal fiefdom. When I spoke with neighbors about the situation, most expressed sympathy but were unwilling to get involved. Patricia has a way of making life difficult for people who cross her, one neighbor confided. Last year, the Johnsons questioned assessment increases, and suddenly, they were getting cited for violations nobody else was held to. They ended up moving. It became clear that conventional approaches wouldn't work. Patricia had too much control over the formal channels that should have provided accountability. The police would likely view this as a civil matter and direct me back to the Homeowners Association. Court proceedings would be lengthy and expensive, but there was one area where I had an advantage that Patricia couldn't match. My technical expertise. If the system wouldn't deliver justice, perhaps a bit of engineering could. I spent the next weekend in my garage, which I had converted into a workshop years ago. Amid the organized chaos of tools, electronic components, and half-finished home automation projects, I set about designing a special circuit for my outdoor outlets, one that would detect unusual power draws and respond accordingly. My old oscilloscope hummed to life as I tested various configurations, the familiar green trace bringing back memories of my engineering days. I worked methodically, fueled by strong coffee and a determination to end Patricia's electricity theft once and for all. By Saturday afternoon, I had sketched out the conceptual design on my whiteboard, a sophisticated monitoring system that would identify and respond to unauthorized power usage. The design was elegant in its simplicity yet complex enough in its implementation that Patricia would never understand what had happened. The circuit would integrate with my existing electrical system using a custom-built microcontroller, programmed to monitor current consumption patterns. It would be able to identify the distinctive load profile of an electric vehicle charger, which draws power in a particular way that's different from most household appliances. When the circuit detected the signature power draw of Patricia's Tesla charger, it would allow the connection to establish normally. This was crucial, as it needed to appear to function properly at first, but simultaneously it would activate a timer. After approximately 10 minutes, enough time for Patricia to connect her car and return home, the circuit would trigger a controlled feedback surge through the line. It was tricky to calibrate this correctly. Too weak and it wouldn't affect her equipment. Too strong, and it might damage my own electrical system or create a genuine safety hazard. After several hours of testing with a load simulator I'd built to mimic her charger, I had it perfectly balanced. The surge would be strong enough to overload and disable the charging equipment by sending a reverse current pulse that would fry the sensitive electronics in both her portable adapter and potentially affect the car's onboard charging system. The beauty of the design was its legality and plausible deniability. I wasn't creating a booby trap or anything that could be considered deliberately malicious. I was simply installing a specialized surge protector on my own property that would defend against unauthorized power draws. If questioned, I could truthfully say it was designed to protect my home from unusual electrical loads that could create fire hazards. The circuit included several safety features to ensure it would only trigger under the specific conditions created by Patricia's charging setup, and would automatically reset afterward. It would also log all events with timestamps that would match perfectly with my security camera footage. Sunday morning I began the installation, carefully disconnecting the power to the exterior circuits and installing my custom protection system. I mounted the control unit in a waterproof housing inside my garage, connecting it to both my home network for remote monitoring and to the power line running to the outdoor outlets. I added temperature sensors and additional surge protection to ensure the system itself would be protected from any unexpected power fluctuation. By late afternoon, I had everything installed, the exterior outlets looking completely normal to casual observation. You would need to remove the outlet cover and inspect the wiring to notice anything unusual, and even then, without understanding the custom programming, it would appear to be a standard surge protection system. I spent Sunday evening running final tests with various appliances, connecting leaf blowers, pressure washers, and other high-draw devices to verify they would operate normally. As expected, none of these triggered the protection circuit. Only the specific power signature of an electric vehicle charger running for more than a few minutes would activate the defense mechanism. As a final safety measure, I programmed the system to send alerts to my phone whenever it detected unusual power draws, or when it activated the protection sequence. With everything in place, I restored power to the circuit and went to bed, both anxious and excited about what might happen in the coming nights. The installation took me most of Sunday to complete. I tested it thoroughly with various appliances to ensure it would only trigger under the specific conditions created by Patricia's charging setup. Then I waited. For 3 nights nothing happened. I began to wonder if she had somehow gotten wind of my preparations. Then, on the 4th night, at precisely 1:47 a.m., my phone buzzed with an alert from my security system. Patricia had returned to her old tricks, sneaking onto my property to connect her Tesla to my modified outlet. I watched the live feed as she quickly hooked up her charging equipment and hurried back to her house. 10 minutes passed as my system monitored the power draw. Then, right on schedule, my circuit detected the Tesla charger's signature power consumption pattern and activated. The screen showed a brief power surge, followed by a shower of sparks from the charging adapter. The connection was severed instantly, leaving Patricia's expensive charging equipment fried and her Tesla's charging system damaged by the feedback loop. My circuit had performed exactly as designed, and I had every second of it documented from multiple angles. I went back to bed with a sense of satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. The next morning's confrontation was everything I had hoped for. Patricia stormed up my driveway as I was retrieving my newspaper, her face contorted with rage. "You did something to your outlets," she screamed, loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. You deliberately sabotaged my car. I'm calling the police right now, and then I'm going to make sure you're fined into oblivion." I remained perfectly calm. "I simply installed a surge protection system on my own electrical outlets," I replied loudly enough for nearby neighbors to hear. "It's designed to prevent unauthorized power draws and protect my home. If someone was attempting to steal electricity from me, I suppose that might trigger the safety features." I pulled out my phone and showed her the footage from the previous night. "I have documented evidence of you trespassing on my property and attempting to steal power multiple times. I also have power consumption logs showing exactly how much electricity you've taken over the past 3 months." Patricia's face went from red to white in seconds. "You can't prove anything," she hissed, but with considerably less conviction. "Actually, I can prove everything," I replied. "I've sent copies of all footage and data logs to every member of the Homeowners Association board, my lawyer, and, for safekeeping, to a cloud server that will automatically forward everything to the district attorney if anything happens to me or my property. Would you like to see the repair estimates for the damage your unauthorized power usage has done to my electrical system? My electrician mentioned that improper loads can create fire hazards, which I believe is a matter the insurance company would find very interesting." The confrontation ended with Patricia retreating to her disabled Tesla, now requiring an expensive tow truck to move. By afternoon, word had spread throughout the neighborhood. It turned out I wasn't the only victim of Patricia's entitled behavior. Other neighbors began coming forward with their own stories. One elderly resident reported that Patricia had been using her garden hose to water her lawn while the woman was away visiting her daughter. Another had caught her harvesting vegetables from his garden without permission. Each incident was small enough to seem petty if reported alone, but together they painted a picture of a person who believed rules simply didn't apply to her. The emergency homeowners association meeting, called the following week, was remarkably well attended, with multiple residents now willing to speak out, and my meticulously documented evidence of electricity theft. The remaining board members had no choice but to address Patricia's misconduct. The power theft alone constituted several $1,000s over the month she had been doing it. When faced with the choice between resignation or criminal charges, Patricia finally backed down. As for her prized Tesla Model X, the situation couldn't have been more satisfying if I'd scripted it myself. Patricia had it towed to the nearest Tesla service center, where technicians immediately identified the problem as electrical damage to the charging system, according to neighborhood gossip, which suddenly flowed freely now that Patricia's intimidation had lost its edge. The service advisor had explained that the onboard charging system had suffered a significant power surge that had damaged multiple components. The diagnostic report identified extensive damage to the charge port assembly, the power conversion module, and several control boards that regulated the battery management system. The dealership estimated repairs at over $6,000, a figure that made Patricia's attempts to save on her electricity bill seem particularly short-sighted. The charging port assembly alone would cost nearly $1,500, plus labor. The power conversion module was another $2,200, and the control boards added another $1,000. Factor in diagnostic fees, labor at the Tesla service center's premium rate, and the replacement of her third-party portable charging adapter, which had been reduced to a melted mass of plastic and copper, and Patricia was looking at a substantial financial hit. To add insult to injury, her homeowner's insurance company declined to claim after their investigation. The claims adjuster, a methodical man named Terrence, who happened to live in the neighboring community, had discovered through his questioning that the damage occurred during what could be classified as the commission of theft. Patricia had apparently tried to lie about the circumstances, claiming the damage happened in her own garage, but Terrence had requested documentation that she couldn't provide. When confronted with this discrepancy, she admitted to borrowing power occasionally, but insisted it was a neighborhood courtesy. Unfortunately for Patricia, Terrence wasn't buying it, particularly since I had provided a statement with my documentation when he contacted me as part of his investigation. Your policy explicitly excludes coverage for damages incurred during illegal activities. Terrence reportedly told her. Utility theft falls under that exclusion. I'm afraid you'll have to cover these repairs out of pocket. The delicious irony wasn't lost on anyone in Meadowbrook Estates. Patricia's attempt to save money by stealing electricity had ended up costing her far more than if she had simply charged her car honestly. As one neighbor pointed out during an impromptu gathering at the community pool, even at our area's relatively high electricity rates of 15 cents per kilowatt hour, she would have needed to steal over 40,000 kilowatt hours to equal the repair cost, given that her Tesla required approximately 75 kilowatt-thousand for a full charge. She would have needed to steal more than 500 complete charges to save what the repairs cost her. At her rate of charging 3 times a week, that would have taken over 3 years. Her penny-pinching scheme had backfired spectacularly.